Okay, friends, today we're going to continue our discussion about order of operations. The operations we're talking about are just the basic ones you've been using: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And I'm going to also include exponents, and that we will see some of those as well. What order are you going to do these operations when you see them in an equation or an expression? A good way to remember, some people like to make this little pyramid, and the different levels show the hierarchy or the order that you're going to do them in. Key is at the top, almost like it's the most important, but it's really not. It's the first one that you're going to do, but it's the one that you're going to focus on first, are parentheses, and I also include brackets in that. Next is exponents, like 3 to the second power. Then you have multiplication and division. If you just see multiplication and division in an expression, you would just solve it left to right like you normally would. Same thing with addition and subtraction. But it's unlikely that you'll see just those addition and subtraction or just multiplication and division. Let's go ahead and tackle some problems. 7 plus 6 times 5 to the second plus 3. Okay, so here's my expression. It's not an equation yet because I don't know the amount that equals the amount represented in the expression. So I'm calling it an expression. Where do I go first? I look back at my order of operations, and parentheses are first. So I immediately focus in here. Within those parentheses, though, there's another order of operations, right? What would be next after parentheses? Exponents. I'm going to tackle this one first. And you want to have some way to bring down the information. 5 to the second is 25. But I want to bring down the rest of my expression. And I'm continuing to keep it inside the parentheses until all of the operations are solved. And I want to make sure I include everything. What I want you to focus on during this lesson is finding a strategy for as you simplify your problem. Some way that you're going to show that you're bringing it down and simplifying it so you don't forget any of the components. Next would be multiplication or division. I see multiplication first. 6 times 25 is 150. Bring down that plus 3. It's still within parentheses because it's not all the way solved. 7 plus is also part of the expression. Still don't know what it equals. I'm going to continue bringing this down. 150 plus 3 is 153. Bringing down the addition, bringing down the 7. And I finally am coming to a very simplified expression. 7 plus 153. So now I can make it an equation because I know the equal amount. These two amounts on either side of the equal sign are the same amount. You can think of equations like a balance almost. When both sides need to be equal to call it an equation. Think of the symbol as the middle of your little balance. And that you can call it an equation when they both sides equal the same amount. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try 3 times 3 plus 5 divided by 2, take away 3. But we'll see where I place the brackets and the parentheses will really be the guiding force to how we solve this problem. So, what would you do first? You would go for the parentheses, right? Well, I see brackets, but within those brackets, I see parentheses. So that's where I would focus first. 5 plus 3 is 8. I need to bring down the divided by, bring down the 2. That's still within a bracket. Take away 3, and make sure I remember to multiply it all by 3 as well. Next, I still have brackets, so that's what I'll do first. Bring this down, it's 4. I'm going to include the takeaway 3 and the 3 multiply. Okay, so now I have a nice simplified expression. And I see that there's multiplication here and subtraction. Multiplication happens to be first, but even if it wasn't, I would do it first because it's higher in the order of operations. So 3 times 4 is 12. Take away 3. What's the final answer going to be? 9. So now I can call it an equation because the amount on this side is equal to the amount on the other side of the equal sign. That's basic solving. We're also going to need to be able to read a phrase and make an equation, I mean, expression that goes with this phrase. What is a phrase? A phrase is just sort of an incomplete sentence or part of a sentence. It doesn't have to have a noun and a verb, and it's a portion of a sentence that will give us enough information to make an expression. So if I read this phrase, the difference between 16 and the product of 7 and 2, I'm going to think about how I can write this. What would this be? Looks like they're going to multiply, get an amount. First, I have an amount to have a difference between. So 16 is one amount, and the product of 7 and 2 is the other amount that I'm working with. And I want to know the difference between those two amounts. So I'm not going to start with, well, I can start with 16, take away the product of 7 and 2. And now they say and, right? And a lot of kids want to put an addition sign there, but they're just giving you the numbers that are working with. The words you want to be looking out for are the words that represent the mathematical operations or the answers that you get to those operations. A product is an answer you get when you multiply. So if I'm asked to give the product of 7 and 2, I know I'm multiplying 7 and 2. So, and then I'm going to go back and check and make sure. So I'm getting the difference between this amount and this amount. 7 times 2 is 14, okay? Then I'm going to read this again and make sure the difference between 16 and the product of 7 and 2. So I'm pretty convinced that I have an expression that matches that phrase. Hopefully you notice how I went back and forth and checked for understanding, checked to make sure that it was reasonable and accurate. I didn't just take it my first guess or my first try. 10 more than the quotient of 36 divided by 9. So I'm adding some 10 more than a certain amount. And the amount I'm adding 10 more to is the quotient of 36 divided by 9. You're going to need to know that quotient is the name of the answer you get when you divide. So I'm going to have 10 more. So 10 plus the quotient of 36 divided by 9. The quotient of 36 divided by 9. And I'm not going to put any parentheses in that. I'm going to be confident that we would get it correct if we solved it, because you're going to immediately go to 36 divided by 9. You see division there. So no matter what even if there's not parentheses there, you're looking at this order of operations. Before addition comes division. So I do this first. 36 divided by 9 is 4. Bring this down. And we find that the answer is 14. Sometimes you're going to have to do the opposite, and you'll be making a phrase from an expression. So make sure you can see that. And while I'm erasing this, you see how you would write a phrase that would describe what's happening in this, what's being represented in this expression. So I see multiplication, so I want the product of these two numbers, and then take 4 away from that. So I could say the product of 6 and 6, 6 and 6, minus 4, or yeah, minus 4. I could say the difference, a couple different ways I could do it. I could say the difference between the product of 6 and 6 and 4. Just make sure that whatever your phrase says matches and gives you the same answer as you would get if you solved this one. If I solve this, I get 36. Take away 4, so it'd be 32. And then I need to make sure that's what I get here. The product of 6 times 6, which is 36 minus 4, 32. So I've checked my answers. There's a lot of parts to math when you're doing order of operations, so you want to take time to double check. It doesn't take that long, really, to check and make sure that you have an answer that makes sense. Let's do one more. How about this one? I see 20, and I'm taking this amount away from 20. So I want this amount as the sum of 2 and 4. So I'd probably say the sum of 2 and 4 subtracted from 20. What you should notice is that it doesn't always go in the order that it's written in. Some kids want to say they want to match the words to the order that they see the that they see the numbers in the expression, but think about really what should be happening when you solve it. That's how you'll be able to craft a phrase that will match it. We're really getting this sum first, and we're subtracting it from 20. So just make sure that you realize that you don't just write it exactly in the order all the time. Sometimes it might be, but you just can't count on the fact that it'd be just like that order. So you might have noticed that you're going to want to know mathematical terms so you can not have that be any kind of problem for you. When you're adding, the answer is called a sum. When you're subtracting, it's going to be called the difference. When you're multiplying, and I'm just writing mult, your answer is called the product. And when you're dividing, the answer is called the quotient. You're going to want that vocabulary easily accessible to you. You want to have that memorized. So if someone says to you, what's the sum of 3 and 4? What's the sum of the number 3 and the number 4? You would know to find the sum you'd add. If I took these same two numbers and I said, what's the product of these two numbers? You would know that I'm looking for multiplication. So be careful with those terms and get those memorized so that you can use them and not be tripped up by that. So that is our order of operation review. Hope you